You're listening to the SClubBeat with Dale and Katey.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the SClubBeat. I'm here in a temporary location, Katey.
I am in my permanent location, Dale.
Yeah. And today we are on part 3 of our LA7 recap. You know what that means, Dale?
We're on our last episode with Jess.
I know.
I'm so sad. I love Jess so much. If y'all don't know,
too.
We love Jess.
I know. You want to take her to prom.
I want to take her to prom and nobody else.
Hello, friend. Hey, Jess.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going spectacular now that you're here.
Oh,
We love that.
This is like episode 6 for her.
She's been here more than any other guest ever. And we love you so much. Yeah, no one else has been here 6 times. Everyone else has only been here twice. You're the only person who's been on here in 3 episodes.
Oh my god. Wow, that's a big difference. Wow, okay. Well, I'm honored. It's always fun. Yeah, it's always fun talking to you guys.
It is a compliment. So did you want to go over the first episode, Fallout, Jen?
Yeah.
Right in.
Yeah, Fallout. Such a fun episode to rewatch. It kind of like continues with the whole theme of like the apartment's always a mess. They don't really know what's going on. So Jo comes in. She's like mad at like the state of the dishes. So then Hannah and Paul, they decide, okay, like who's going to do the dishes is whoever loses to this game of chess. Whoever loses has to do dishes for the entire week. Which honestly, like having a roommate in the past, like that's kind of like how we would do things. We'll like play rock, paper, scissors. So like that's very accurate for them to do. But the theme also continues of them having no money and constantly getting these random jobs just to like make ends meet. So in this episode, John gets a job as a model and Jo and Bradley go for the same job at a burger spot. And in her interview, Jo's very professional. She's really great. Brad, not so much. He doesn't really like answer the questions correctly. He doesn't really know what's going on. So obviously, like they offer the position to Jo of being the cashier at their burger restaurant. But they give Brad a job too, but he's going to be dressed up as a hot dog outside. It turns out that Jo gets annoyed at some customers for ordering a burger from her because they have like all these really random like menu item names that she just kind of gets fed up and annoyed. So she gets fired for like yelling at the customers, but she manages to convince the owner to give her another chance. But this time, like the other chance is having her dress up as a burger. So now we have Bradley as a hot dog and we have Jo as a burger. So she comes outside. And she gets annoyed at Bradley for being outside in a really good, prominent spot. And I love Jo because she's like so like passive aggressive, but more aggressive in this episode of anything. And she just throws hands.
I love
like, they just start fighting. And I
love the comeback. I love the comebacks on that. The move your big bun and touch my butt.
Oh yeah,
smack you straight in your sausage.
And, like the way that she said it. It's so good. It's so good.
In the heavy British accent, it's beautiful.
It truly is beautiful. Like I'm honestly like, she is an inspiration for like how to talk to people when someone annoys you. Like truly.
Like girl power.
Like love her. Absolutely love her. But like, in another scene, we have John at a modeling shoot and he thinks that he's modeling pajamas, but in reality, he was hired to be the geeky before guy in a spot cream ad. So he is just kind of like taken aback by it and really /sad upset about it because it's just kind of like embarrassing from thinking like, oh yeah, it's like a prominent like model feature. And it's just like, no, you're like the geeky guy. And then there's like another scene that happens and the theme continues again of like whether they should move on and give up of their ideas and dreams of being a band. But this time it's interesting because it's not coming from any of the 7 members, but it's coming from Joni. And she's essentially saying, like, if you want to keep trying to be big and, like, be a big band, they need to keep their apartment tidy and pay rent on time. Like, those are, like, the foundations of, like, being in LA. So we had, like, I mean, yeah, like, how can you be in LA if you can't afford rent? And your landlord is on you. Like, she can kick you out.
Why can they not keep a job? Like,
I mean, we all know the reason why. They are messes. Like,
It's because they always break out in song.
yeah, they're like, oh my god, these kids, they keep singing. Yeah, I mean, I love them, but they're pretty irresponsible. But at the same time, they're young, whatever. But it's interesting that at this time, I thought it was interesting that this time it comes from Joni. But it's like a continuous thing that happens throughout these episodes. And then later that night is probably my favorite scene ever in the whole of like S Club's series, which is when Rachel helps Paul win chess. And it kind of just starts this domino effect of everyone being mad at each other. So Hannah gets angry at Rachel for helping Paul. And she also gets mad at Paul for like letting her like help him. And then John comes in mad about the way that things went at his shoot. And he gets mad at Tina for asking how it went. Like, she's just like trying to be nice. And he just kind of like snaps at her. And then Joe comes in with bruises and she tells them that she got in a fight with Bradley because and they both lost their jobs. And then Bradley comes in a bunch of bandages and like head wraps, like goes a beating at him. And John gets mad at Joe for almost killing Bradley. And then everyone just kind of like, I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking to you. And it's just like the way that they blocked the scene as well is just so funny to me because it's like a triangle. And then Rachel's like, well, like, who am I not supposed to talk to then? So everyone's just kind of like mad and angry at each other and they don't want to talk to each other. But the next day Joni comes in with a magazine at the cafe and she shows them the Spot Cream ad. Or maybe it's like a couple days later. Either way, the timing doesn't work because like how
I'd say it doesn't go to print that quickly.
Exactly. Like the timing's off, but we're gonna let that slide. But they all like laugh about that. They realize how silly it was that they were all mad at each other. And then they perform probably also maybe my favorite performance in the entire show as well, Stand By You. It's a very simple song and choreography, but it's cutesy, and I really liked it.
This choreography, we've mentioned it a couple of times, it's not for the weak of heart or the weak of body.
the knees.
Weak of the knees, weak of the thighs. I used to play soccer and I used to get my upper thighs used to like cramp a lot, like after all the running and all that. And I recreated the Stand By You dance for the World of S Club Instagram when it was released on streaming. And I got those same cramps like 20 years later. My body's not built like that, built for that anymore. That video did not make it onto the internet, Jess.
I'll those
Take it on into your chat.
No, it will not make it to the group chat. I'm pretty sure I deleted it forever because it was bad.
I mean, I'm doing some takes of it as well.
Yeah, and like kudos to S Clubbers for doing, because they did that and they performed it on TV a couple of times too. No, thank you. Yeah. No, thank you. But we're gonna pull out our LA7 diary, Jess. The LA7 PARP free. Where is that? PARP free, 100% PARP free. LA7 diary, and we're gonna see what they had to say about Stand By You.
Let's do it.
Hannah says that this song is V appropriate in this episode because it's all about sticking with your mates no matter what and not letting arguments get in the way. Tina and I take the leads on Stand By You, which will make you go woohoo and bring a smile to your face.
She did not say
Did y'all
that.
go woo? Huh?
No, we didn't go with it.
That is not telling Hannah. But like, we're also going to let that slide. We're also going to let that slide.
If y'all want to know more about that, y'all can go back to episode 1 where we discuss if the S-Clubbers actually said any of this stuff or it was just written by production. I'm pretty sure it was just written by production.
Yeah, great plug-in.
I'm going to say one of my favorite parts of that episode, too, is right before they make up, when Tina's, like, telling Paul, you know, can you tell Hannah this? And he's like, I'm not talking to Hannah. Or tell John this. They just, I don't remember the exact order, but then she's like, okay, you tell Joe to tell Rachel to tell Paul to tell John. Then what?
Yeah, it was beautiful. This is probably, like Jess said, one of the best episodes and one of the best scenes in the series. Like, I love that.
There's that theme scene where like they're at the cafe and then like they're not talking to each other. There's also like a moment where like Hannah's like, oh, I think someone sneezes, and Hannah's like, "How Rachel, like, bless you," and then she's like, Bradley's like, Hannah says, "Bless you," and she's like, "My pleasure." And then Hannah's like literally right next to Rachel, and she's like, "What did she say?" And she's like, "Oh, okay." And it's just like they're so ridiculous, but it's so funny to me.
All right, Katey, did you want to bop on over to the next episode, Game Boy? Yeah.
Game Boy. So we start off at a Zelda audition. Joni got for the girls, for Joe, Hannah, and Rachel, not Tina. Don't know why. Tina doesn't get to audition. And the casting director wants a couple Zeldas to go around to the malls and advertise this new game coming out. And she's also trying to convince the guy to hire them because, you know, they're poor little Brits and they need the money. And if they don't have the money, she's going to throw them out. So he decides to only call back Joe and Rachel. So Hannah's a little upset, which I love that you can also on brand. I don't know if it was scripted or not, but Joe and Rachel cannot keep a straight face when Hannah is mad. Like they are holding their lips just like they did in like Court in the Act, trying not to laugh.
Yeah.
And so Hannah walks out and they go to the cafe where Tina, John, and Paul are rehearsing Natural. And the other three are just sitting on the ground stretching, and Hannah's still moaning about why she didn't get the part or get a callback for it. And Tina wonders where Bradley is because he is not the addition. And she goes back to the apartment and he's there playing his video games. And he said, you know, they'll come after the next level. And he's like, oh, look at those guts on the game. And Tina's like, one of my favorite lines of hers, too. She's like, you know, I don't like violence. Now get your butt down to rehearsal or I'm going to rip off both of your arms and beat you to death with them.
Bradley, you know I don't like violence.
Sorry.
Now get your butt down to rehearsals or I'm going to rip off both your arms and beat you to death with them!
Ooh. Which is kind of a Joe line, though. Like, I could see Joe saying that more than Tina.
Yeah. You're so right.
What
that makes very sense.
Tina's very bossy when it comes to dancing or rehearsals.
Yeah.
Joe's just bossy in general. So it's on brand for Tina to beat people with arms when it comes to dancing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they get back to the cafe, still without Bradley, and now they're rehearsing Stand By You.
Mm.
Which they already performed, so why do they need to rehearse it?
They have to perfect it for the TV shows that they're going to perform on later.
Okay. But you know their knees are killing them. And John says they've been doing it for 4 hours.
I know.
And he's exceeded the daily recommended amount for front flips. So they are all exhausted. Tina said, let's take a 10-minute break, and I'm going to go back and kill Bradley. And Paul and John say, no, we'll go talk to him. Joe, Rachel, and Hannah are relaxing while Tina's gone. And Joni comes up and asks why they're not rehearsing. Of course, they think it's for the band. So they're like, we have been. And they're like, she's like, no, for the audition, you need a talent. And they're like, well, we have talents. We can sing. She's like, no, it's LA. Everybody can sing.
Yeah.
So she wants them to go get some talents. Hannah says she has a talent of touching her tongue with her nose, and the group is grossed out about that. Which I don't see what's gross about it. I mean,
I can't do
they're
that.
just acting like it's the worst ever, because Joni's like, I wouldn't boast about that. Like, when I was in school, that was a cool thing to do. So they leave, and Hannah's still trying to do it, and she finally sticks her finger and tries to make it, which it does not make it, but the crowd is still like, woohoo! And she's like, oh, okay, thank you.
Forever.
She didn't do it. We get back to the house, and Paul and John are trying to still convince Bradley to stop. They're saying, you know, we saw Jennifer Lopez at the cafe, and he's like, yeah, no. So Paul's like, I'm going to pull the plug on it. And he's counting down, he pulls the plug, and nothing happened, and they realize because he plugged it into a generator. Because he was that desperate to keep playing.
I don't people who play games usually have that foresight, you know?
Of what, that power's going to go out or something?
Yeah. I don't think it like, actively anticipates that.
Well, see, like when I play Sims, which my computer sucks, so I haven't played it in a while, but because it sucks, it likes to freeze. So I save, like, anytime I, like, get off the computer to do something, I save the game. Because you don't know if your computer's going to crash. So we go back to Joni with Rachel and Joe, and she's trying to decide what they want to do. Joe says that Rachel's funny when she puts on the face mask and does an impression. Joni asks Rachel to tell a joke, and she says one, but she can't remember what the punchline is. So then Joe says one, and she says a punchline, but she says the wrong one. But Joni said just because she has punchline, you know, she gets to be the comedian part. Rachel's like, whew, I'm glad I didn't get that. And then Joni's like, you're going to be riding a unicycle. So, yeah, she's not happy about that one. They come back to the apartment still arguing about the fact that, you know, about the jokes and what the punchlines were supposed to be. And they look over and the rest of the band's standing there, sitting there staring at them. They're like, oh, like, what do we do? And Tina said, we're thinking about chucking someone out of the band. And Joe immediately gets defensive. And she's like, this is about me putting nudes of John on the internet. And they're like, no, it's about Bradley. He hasn't left. You know, he hasn't went to the bathroom. He hasn't slept. He hasn't ate. Which is not on brand for Bradley, because Bradley likes to eat and sleep.
Very great.
So, Paul has a gaming magazine and discovers that you can't beat the game without the cheat made by the creator, which happens to be at the same company that the Zelda auditions are happening. Rachel, Tina, and Paul go to the building, and as they're leaving, John's been quiet the entire time. And all of a sudden, after they leave, he looks at Joe and he's like, you put photos out of me? And she's just like laughing, so he knocks her to the ground and starts tickling her, I guess. The other guys get to the game place. Of course, the reception area looks exactly like the one in Prom, where they were Mr. Walter's office.
It probably
And
is.
of course, and the receptionist is saying the same thing too. The guy's busy, can't see you. So that must be a very busy office building. And they say they are from a computer team in Chicago. That, you know, there's a virus on the computer.
We were all in Chicago.
I know we were. So they said there's a virus on the computer that gives them like the computer flu with a stuffy modem and an e-fever. They get into the creator's room and they realize that he is a 13-year-old boy and he immediately gets a crush on Hannah. And they're trying to convince him to come down and help Bradley beat the game. And when they say it's in Venice, he immediately was like, sun, surf, chicks. And then he's like, will you be there? To Hannah? And she's like, no, I can't. And Tina steps on her foot. She's like, yep, I wouldn't miss it. So they go to the apartment. He tells Bradley how to cheat. Well, they ask him to show him how to cheat. And he's like, well, I'm going to need a hug first. And so Paul's sitting beside him. He's like, oh, okay. And he's like, no. From a Tootsie Roll. Yeah, Hannah. So Hannah, gives him a hug. He was like, how's that for you? And she's like, dude, you're 13 and a little squirt. Like, why would I want to date you? He's like, well, I own 5 mansions, a yacht in the south of France, and I'm worth about, $15 billion. And she's like, huh, do you like Chinese? Bradley beats the game, and he gets up to celebrate, and you hear his stomach, like, crack. And he's like, oh, like, I gotta go to the bathroom. So Ed runs away, and then it switches to them performing Cross My Heart, which is very funny considering they've been practicing choreography all day, and the song they end up singing has no choreography whatsoever.
None.
Like, yeah. They were just so tired from practicing that they're like, yeah, we're not going to do any dancing. We're just going to make up our own moves.
Beautiful.
So, tons of glitter, by the way. The confetti was like everywhere. The boy is dancing with Joni at the cafe and grabs her butt. And she's like, dude, you're 13. And he's like, you're only as old as the woman you feel. That's just weird. So after the performance, Rachel and Joe go back to the audition, and turns out Joni got the date wrong, and they were a day late. And the casting director said he ended up casting a comedian and a unicyclist, which they just happened to be auditioning as. But the new audition is for a Dentifix commercial. Like, these people have, like, big teeth in front of them, and their head sticking out, and they're like, yeah, no way, we're not doing that. Cuts to the commercial where they ended up doing the commercial. Mm-hmm. And the band watches it, is laughing at them, and they're like, yeah, that's not funny.
They paid the rent that month.
Yeah. What did you do? Like, we paid the rent. Like, what do y'all do? So they make jokes like, John said, you look really polished. They're like, yeah, no, we're going to bed. And Hannah's like, what about supper? And they're like, yeah, we're not hungry. And Paul's like, what, tooth filling? John said, we always eat supper together. And Hannah's like, you know the drill. They were totally over it. They're like, yeah, we're going to bed. See you later. And Bradley goes, don't forget to brush yourself. So they, of course, smack him with the pillow. The end.
Beautiful. So Joe in the LA7 diary, she had some words about Cross My Heart. She says, I loved recording this because it's exactly my kind of music, even though it's fairly challenging vocally. It's all about being away from home and really missing my boyfriend and how he's always in my mind even though we're apart. It's not a soppy love song though, it's far cooler. And I agree, Cross My Heart is probably one of my favorites from the album.
Great song.
So, it's a fantastic song.
It's okay for me.
All right, so I'm going to go over the next episode, Katey and Jess, and this one is called Making Movies, because, S Club love making movies. They've been recording since LA, or since Miami. So, the episode begins with Joni following an ant trail directly to the S Club apartment. And she's mad about the state of the apartment because S Club can't pay their rent, and the apartment is always dirty and apparently attracts ants. Around the same time, they realize their agent isn't really going to help them achieve their goals, of being a big band and making it, so they have to get famous themselves. So Paul gets the glorious idea to make an S Club movie. But around the same time, Tina kind of realizes that Joni isn't mad about the ants or the state of the apartment. She's just mad that her boyfriend left her. Aren't we all mad when our boyfriend leaves us? Is it just...
I think she's really upset about the apartment. It's just Tina wants to change the subject.
I mean, also valid.
Yeah.
Also valid, but...
Like, Joni has every right to be mad at them. Come on, it's been... how many weeks since they've been in LA, and...
But, I don't think landlords randomly meet their tenants, though. Like, when I lived in an apartment, I don't think I ever saw the landlord,
She didn't exactly vet them, so it is her fault. Like, she's just like, yeah, you can stay there. Like, she didn't know anything about them.
And also, landlords aren't just allowed to just, come to your apartment whenever they want. So, Joni comes in a lot, but it's just, in reality, it wouldn't be like that. It would be, once a year when it's, an inspection.
Or at least knocking.
Yeah. So, as Joni is being broken up with by her boyfriend, Rachel and Tina tell them they're going to help her get over it, because that's all you can do, is you can get over it. Paul, takes the he's the one who thought that the movie was a great idea, but John kind of really takes that over as the director, and they put together a plot where two of them are burglars. Can y'all guess who the burglars are, y'all?
Rachel and Joe.
Rachel and Joe are the burglars, and I would love Rachel Stevens to burgle my house, you know? I would love that. Like, I wouldn't even call the cops, because I deserved it.
What would she even take?
At my house, she would probably take my computer, which has all of my RachelStevens.com stuff, so she would just try to get access to that. Like, I think that would be her end goal, to get access to her name's goal. Yeah. So Rachel and Joe are robbing a bank, and there are 4 cops chasing them. The cops are Hannah, Bradley, Paul, and John. But Paul gets distracted by Tina just dancing.
That's Bradley's job. It's just to...
Yeah, that's what I said. Bradley gets distracted by Tina dancing.
You said Paul.
I meant Bradley. That's what I meant, y'all.
I know that's what you meant, but our viewers are probably confused for half a second, so that's why I said.
Yeah. Excuse to correct Dale, you know.
Any excuse. But that's pretty much the end of the episode. We do get 2 songs in this episode. We get Someday, Someway.
Wait, that's it?
Huh?
That's literally it.
That's it?
It's very quick. Like,
It's not a thick, heavy plot. There wasn't a lot of nuances to it, Katey.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how did it end with Joni?
She gets over her boyfriend, because that's all you can do. We already said that, Katey. She just gets over it.
No, she doesn't.
Do you have anything you want to add to the episode, Katey?
They tied her. She keeps trying to call him, so they tied her to the bed with oven mitts on, so she can't call him.
And then
Probably
she gets over
resolved
it.
Huh?
And then she gets over it.
No, because he leaves her a voicemail saying he's sorry, and she screams because she can't answer the voicemail.
In our LA7 diary, Tina does say that someday in some way an S-Club party are performed in the episode. She says you get a 2-for-1 price. You get 2 for the price of 1 in this episode. S-Club Party is, of course, taken from our first album and featured in Miami 7 and Back to the 50s. While Someday Someway, originally a hit from Marshall Crenshaw, is a rock and roll-ish kind of number performed by John. And I know what you two were thinking. What was that, Jess?
I wouldn't say rock and roll.
That's what I was going to say. This is not a rock and roll song.
It's like a beat, a bop or a...
It's not. Tina's wrong on this one, y'all. She's just...
Maybe a doo-wop song, if anything, but not rock and roll.
Let me
I
see.
was thinking of bebop, but I don't think that's true.
Right.
And doo-wop seems...
I'm going to see what year it was released. It was released in 1982. So,
I don't know.
it's definitely not a rock and roll song, Tina. I'm sorry, girl. Absolutely. Maybe Marshall Crenshaw. I don't know any of his other music, but is he a rock and roll singer?
I don't know.
I don't know, but either way, Tina's in the wrong on this one.
Tina's in the wrong. So it just says that he's an American singer.
Management is in the wrong.
You're right.
Or Tina's in the wrong.
Tina is in the wrong.
It doesn't specify what kind of music. But anyway.
I love how they decide to, what should we do now? Well, duh, sing a song. Like they always do.
Yeah.
So the next episode, Katey, did you want to take Working? It's probably one of my favorite. They're finally getting a job.
Okay, so the band are sitting around, and of course, they're broke again. As always. Bradley comes in from his job, because he's the only one that randomly has a job this week. He's like, oh, I found $50 at the back of one of the seats. And they're like, well, where are we going to go? Hannah's like, yeah, come on, Bradley. And he's like, no, you still owe me $20. And she's like, no, I gave that to Paul. And Paul's like, well, no, I gave that to Tina. And Tina's like, well, I only got that because Rachel needed it and didn't want to ask. And Rachel's like, well, I wouldn't have needed it if I didn't, give my money to John. And John's like, well, I only needed it because Bradley needed it. So they kind of went in circles there, but apparently Joe's okay with money because nobody lent her money. They decide they're just going to stay in. Bradley goes and plays his PlayStation again. Tina turns on her radio and starts dancing. John and Rachel are blow drying their hair. Joe is on her cell phone trying to call someone. Hannah is watching TV and Paul is editing the Making Movies video. All that causes the power to go out. So, and he was upset because Dawson's Creek was just about to start.
Oh, to be began.
Yeah. So all the neighbors outside, they're trying to figure out what happened, and the band comes out and they're like, "I'm sorry, we didn't it." And they're like, "Okay, well, let's kick him out." And they're like, "No, let's not tell Joni." And there's a electrician already there, one of the neighbors, Wally, and he says, "I can fix it." So they're like, "Okay, great." And he's like, "Yeah, it's going to cost about $90,000 to $100,000. And Joe's like, "Yeah, how about $200?" So he said, "Deal," because apparently he's going to rewire the entire building. So they decide again.
How unrealistic.
Yeah. They decide again that they need to get jobs because they only apparently need jobs when it's convenient. They don't just have jobs. Like,
I should adopt that mentality.
maybe they get paid for campaigning. I don't know. Like, do they get paid to perform? Do they get tips? Do they have a non-promoted CD that they put together that they sell? No? No money?
No.
Okay.
Well, they volunteer.
So Tina sees an ad in the paper for a dog walker and tells Rachel about it. And she's like, "No, I'm a cat person. Like, you ain't going to see me walking dogs." And then she ends up being a dog walker. She's a dog walker, and Joe and John are making copies of their resumes, and they run into a guy. He saw the resumes and saw they look for jobs, and they're British, so he's like, "Okay, you'll be perfect for a radio job. You know a lot about classical music, right?" They think classic music. So they're like saying all these British bands, and he's like, "No, classical music, like Beethoven, Mozart." John's like kind of flubbing his way through it, getting all sorts of stuff wrong, and Joe steps up and she's just going on about classical music. The guy is so happy, and turns out Joe's dad is a classic music buff, and he actually owned a used record store. Thanks to Joe, they get the job.
This is the second time we learn about S Club's parents. Do y'all remember who the first one was?
Tina's
Tina.
dad.
Over Dan, yeah. So it goes back to Rachel, and she goes and picks up one of the dogs from the Cloaked Avenger, which is a guy in like a Superman type leotard thing, because he was on a TV show in the 70s, and he has a dog named Cloak Girl. He goes on to the story that, it's not the original Cloak Girl. It was played by a girl named Cece that broke his heart, and Rachel's just like, "Okay, like, just give me the dog. Like, I don't care." So she takes Cloak Girl. They go on the walk with all the other dogs, and she runs into Hannah, who got a courier job, and she's on rollerblades. Rachel's like, "I'm starving. Can you hold these guys while I go get a Caesar salad?" And Hannah's like, "Yeah, sure." And the dogs take off with her. And Rachel's like, "Okay, I'll go get the Caesar salad." They get back home that day. John, Paul, and Tina are sitting by candlelight, trying to figure out, if we just keep our jobs for so long, we'll be able to pay it. Which, what are Paul and Tina doing? Like, they never do say
Also,
what Paul and Tina are doing.
how long does it take to come up with $200? Like, I don't know what y'all's hour, like, it would take me like 2 days to come up with $200, but it also takes 2 weeks to get paid.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So unless they're getting paid they'd have to be getting, how do they get jobs in the first place? Because they don't have,
Work visas.
well, no,
Under the table.
because in Miami, they got the work visas, but it was only to sing. They didn't have permits.
Exactly. They don't have work. They don't
Yeah,
have.
so how are they getting all these jobs?
Yeah, but also back then it wasn't, if you're working minimum wage, it takes a while to get 200. Like, I used to work at Hollister, it would take me like 20 hours or so to like maybe get 150.
Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know, the U.S. minimum wage is $7.25.
Where you are.
Huh?
Yeah, where you were.
Where you are.
Oh, yeah.
It's like $15, $16 here.
Okay, we're talking in 2000, Katie.
Okay.
So it must have been like 8, 7. Yeah, back then it was like probably 8. It was definitely like $8 for me, like 8 something.
What
I
if
started working in 2004, and I made $5.25 an hour, and that was in 2004 in Illinois.
Okay, I'm
That's how low
googling it.
minimum wage was.
Wow, that's so
I'm
low.
googling it. Hold, please.
Yeah, so it
Oh.
would probably take
It was actually $5.75
oh my
In
god.
California?
in California. from March 1st, 98 to January 1st, 2001, when it went up to 625.
That's crazy.
But you did have 7 people working.
Okay, so 575 times 40 hours.
Only at this point, only Rachel Bradley, and
All but Tina and Paul were working. Well, they imply they're working, but we never hear where they're working.
Okay, so 40 hours at 575 is $230. So one of them would be able to come up with the $200 to repair the building.
Yeah, but were they working 40 hours a week?
Well, I assume that Joe and John would be working at the radio station.
Back to this.
Okay.
Bradley comes in and reveals, after they say, if we keep our jobs, we can make us money. Bradley comes in and says, yeah, I'm fired. Because he was snugging the projectionist. And it made her put the reels on the wrong order. Which made Titanic a happy ending. He got a new job as a valet.
Can Bradley drive?
Well, 2000, he was...
drive the car. It's always been like Paul.
No, like
for her.
Historically, like in Miami, he never drove. He did drive in one of the performances.
Well, in Miami, they said he couldn't drive because he had the daydream that he was driving in Miami. Like when they were sitting on the merry-go-round, he had the daydream that he was driving and all the girls were around him. And then Joe's like, well, he can't drive.
Yeah, so that job doesn't make sense for Bradley. He can't drive. I assume
he got his license. Yeah, they don't drive a lot in LA.
I don't see them going to the DMV and Bradley taking the American driving test.
Yeah.
I just don't see that.
Yeah. They don't tend to, they don't drive much in LA compared to Miami.
Well, they also have they have the clunker here. They have the Ford Galaxy, the blue one.
Yeah.
That's rusted. Anyway.
Yeah. Just sell it. There's your money right there. You don't use it. We go back to John and Joe that are at the radio station, and their boss leaves at 2:00 every day. So he's like, see you later. I know the radio station's in good hands. And they're like, speaking of, is your car radio still broken? And he's like, yeah, unfortunately. John's like, yeah. So he leaves and he goes in the booth with Joe, and they put on All Love Is Fair. So, and then we see them performing it on the rooftop.
Romantic.
Yep. And then we cut to the next day, or maybe the same day, because the performance is in dusk, and then it's now daylight again. So Rachel opens the van with all her dogs, and she calls roll call, and she realizes she's missing a dog. She's missing Cloak Girl. So she goes to the Cloaked Avenger and says she's missing her. He says, well, then, she's like, I'll make up, do whatever I can to make up for it. And he said, well, you can wear the Cloak Girl suit and follow me to all my appearances. That's that night where they're back home, and Joe and John are walking up to the house and notice there's a nice car in the spot where the old clunker used to be. They come inside and they're like, what's with that car? And Bradley's like, well, there's a car left over after I got done, so I took it home for safekeeping. His boss calls and says that was his car that he took home. And Bradley's like, well, the car's fine except for the mayonnaise stain because the cheerleaders were hungry because they needed a ride. So his boss told him to tell one of his friends to fire him. So Bradley says, you're fired. Now get a job. And during that scene, too, Rachel shows up in her Cloak Girl outfit, and they're all making fun of her because John's like, I had no idea you joined the Pat Rangers.
Rachel Stevens would make such a gorgeous Power Ranger.
Yeah. We go the next day. Joe and John are in the studio, and their boss says, hey, I'm leaving. So they turn on Stand By You, and the boss goes outside and gets a phone call from Rachel and says that she won't be able to get his dog, Mr. Dibbles, back till after 4 because she's stuck at the tire shop at the signing of the Cloak Avenger. So he's like, okay, yeah, that's fine. He goes back inside and realizes that Joe and John are playing S-Club music and not classical music. Which I love that part too, because Joe and John are just in the booth like this, and he's like screaming, and John's like, uh-oh. And then they just stand there like, hi. So they get fired. Bradley goes and gets a new job at a adult education center. They're really vague on what the job is. because he's like, what's my performances? And they're like, oh, you'll learn on the job. And he's like, they're like, the changing room's over there. And he's like, oh, so what's my uniform? And they're like, oh, you'll see. And it turns out he's a nude model for painting class.
Beautiful.
And he's like, his inner monologue's like, okay, it's not bad, but, just sit there. And, it's not like I know anybody. And out peeks Joni from behind one of these big old canvases. And she's like, nice glutes. And he's like, okay. So now he's embarrassed for that. So we go back to Rachel. And she's giving Mr. Dibbles back to Mr. Parker, which is Joe and John's boss. He sees the Cloaked Avenger. And he's like, oh my gosh, I'm a huge fan. I'm sure I got a pen and paper in my car. Can I have your autograph? And he opens his car door. And out pops the Cloak Girl. She had been in there since last night. Which gives me some questions. Because that poor dog was in a car in LA overnight.
Well, you have to realize it is like January, February, so it's not hot.
Yeah, it's cold out now.
In a car, and dog in the car overnight.
You don't know what you could do back in 2000. It was a different time, Katey.
Okay. Whatever.
Different time.
So,
Rachel Stevens would never harm a dog.
well, she didn't. It wasn't Rachel. It would have been Mr. Parker's fault because it was in his car overnight. So he's the dummy who didn't see the dog in his back seat.
But Rachel's also the one that was in charge of the dog.
Yeah. So Rachel talks to Cloak Girl and she's like, are you done making my life miserable? And a car honks and Cloak Girl takes off. She chases her and the dog runs into the adult education center right to Bradley's lap. So Bradley stands up and holds dog right where viewers don't want to see.
Over his naughty bits.
Yeah. Rachel's like, Bradley. The Cloaked Avenger finally gets to the building. The lady that interviewed Bradley, and that's the painting instructor, she's like, wait a minute, I recognize that dog. And then she sees the Cloaked Avenger, and the lady is Cece, who broke the Cloaked Avenger's heart. So they rekindle. They go back to the beach, and they're going to go see Joni's art exhibit. And then after that, they got the Cloaked Avenger's wedding, because they got married real fast. Joe's like, I don't understand why, their boss had to come back. They always left. I don't understand. And Rachel's like, oh, best not to think about it. Tina, she nagged on Joni, for no reason. She's like, I don't understand why she's selling her art. She's only been taking class 2 weeks. Really? What are you nagging on Joni's strings for? Let her sell her art.
At least she's making money, Tina. What are you doing?
I did not like that part. She's like, what's wrong with that?
Well, I think they're trying to draw attention to the fact that Joni's selling her art. And like you said, kind of tying everything together with the pretty little bow.
Yeah. They see the Bradley's photo. And they're laughing at that. And it's a huge photo. And which Joni's art's pretty good. Looking at it.
Joni didn't draw that.
Yes, she did. Come on. So Bradley's like, who would buy this? And Paul looks at the tag and he's like, it's already been sold for $1,000. Joni comes up and she's like, yeah, I was going to use the money to rewire the building, but when I looked this morning, it was all rewired. So I'm going to spend the money on myself. So all that hard work to do that. I mean, no, it's nice of them though, because that's like paying their rent. They rewired Joni's house.
But they probably never told her that was them.
Yeah. So now they're not that paid double.
I want to get the credit for it,
Yeah, that's pretty much the end of it. And Hannah is, of course, blonde as ever. And because they're like, who would buy this? And Bradley said, come on, look at it. It's me. It's a guy half naked. And Hannah's like, yeah, a dog lover would buy it.
I would buy it.
Yeah.
In the LA7 diary, which I will not hold up because I know that it is a pain point for you two because you do not have it. Joe comments on All in Love is Fair. She said, this one is all about someone who's found out her boyfriend's been cheating on her and how he needs to choose between 2 girls, even though he could be the one who ends up getting hurt the most. I think this is a nod to her 2005 single, What Hurts the Most. I think that she predicted, the future. Anyway. No, did you not get the joke? Not a joke, not funny?
I get it.
Even though he could be the one who ends up getting hurt the most, All in Love has a really laid-back, swingy feel to it, and I love it. And like Cross My Heart, it is also a very beautiful song to me.
Yeah, they're very R&B.
They're very R&B. We discussed this in the 7 episodes, so y'all go listen to that. It's beautiful. So we have one more episode, y'all.
Yeah.
I think to cut it all, or tie it all together, I'm gonna go over it. I hope y'all are okay with that.
Absolutely. Go for it.
Because they're so special.
I am. I'm gonna end off the episode, y'all. The episode starts off with Joe saying that they're just in a rut. They've been living in LA for months and nothing has been working for them, and they haven't gotten very far in their efforts to become a big band. Just as John is saying that they need a change, Bradley comes to the door saying that Joni's on her way to the apartment, and they all start freaking out because, as usual, the apartment is a mess. And when she come in, she's really relaxed, and she says that their apartment is looking really good. And it turns out she met a tow truck guy, and they're getting married. This is very on par for Joni. Do y'all remember when Rachel met the tow truck guy in LA7?
Yeah.
Oh,
Like-
yeah.
It was very sexist.
Yeah, so I love how they just kind of recycle the same, like, why does he have to be a tow truck driver? So, and this is also
The guy from Boyfriends and Birthdays that she ends like that. She has
yeah, he was a
with it
mechanic.
also a mechanic. It's like these mechanic guys, these car guys.
yeah, they're not very big on storylines. And it's also very on par for Joni to get married very quickly. Like, if someone she just met, that's something I would do.
Yeah, because in Hello Hollywood, she had like all those pictures of all the guys she's dated. And
Yeah, crazy. So Bradley freaks out at this news, and they wonder what they're going to do. She plans to leave LA and sell the apartment. Like, she's just like, I'm done. So as with Miami, the band looks back and they reminisce on their time of when they first arrived in LA and all the adventures they've had, such as how they met Joni, getting lost in the woods on their way to LA, which, like, that's not in order, but that's okay, S Club. Their stint at working at Clever Camp, Paul going on a date with Joni, performing at the high school prom, John arm wrestling Ryan. We never got an updated video of Bradley and John arm wrestling, so we'll never know how that ends. And getting an agent and a bunch of other stuff. They decide they're going to tell their agent, they're going to go to their agent and tell them things better start working out or they're leaving, thinking that they will be begging them to stay. Like, he wants the manager to beg them to stay. But he doesn't really care. He's like, oh. And he tells them that he's going to send their tape to a producer soon, and the band was tired of waiting and they walk out. They are done. They're done. So they clean out their apartment and they hit the road, although they don't know where they're going next. But their agent tries to catch them and tell them there's a lot of interest at the label for them. That wraps up our LA episodes. So the last thing is Bradley does comment on Best Friend, Katey. He does do it. He says, you know what? I wrote this one. I was thinking about me and my friends when we were younger and what we all went through when we all used to hang out together. It goes well with this episode because whatever S Club 7 end up doing after this final episode of LA will always be friends through thick and thin, no matter what.
I like
this one's my favorite finale, like of all of them.
Yeah.
Just to see, like, that apartment was so cool. Like, I love that apartment. And then to just see them pack up and they're like, you know, there's a lot of happy memories here. And I love Joe's line that she's like, you know, it's sad, but it's happy at the same time. It's like when it's raining, but the sun comes out. I thought that was quite poetic, Joe. But,
yeah, it's definitely bittersweet for them to say bye to this apartment and this chapter.
Yeah.
Do y'all have any final thoughts on LA before we wrap this episode up in a beautiful little bow?
It's my favorite season.
Definitely my favorite season.
Yeah.
So I know we talked in the last episode, we were going to rank them like we do the albums, but it doesn't work because Jess isn't going to be the guest host in the other ones. So did y'all just want to rank how they fall, like just as your favorites to least favorites, like all in one?
In terms of season,
Yeah. So like your 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
So
LA, Miami, Hollywood, Viva.
Yeah.
just if you want to go,
Retweet.
same.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, mine's completely different. Mine would be Hollywood, Viva. No, Hollywood, LA, Viva, Miami.
Okay.
So Miami's classic.
And I think the later seasons are just better. Like Hollywood is my absolute favorite because that's really where I fell in love with Rachel Stevens because of all the times that we heard "Show Me Your Colors." Like if you would have asked 2001 Dale, I was sure that "Show Me Your Colors" was going to be a single because that's one of the only songs that they've performed twice in the same season.
Yeah.
But that's all we have for our LA7 episode 3. If you would like to follow Jess, you can follow her at It's Jess at all of the socials. You can also follow her on our Discord, where she is also It's Jess. The Discord is join.sclub.org. If you would like to follow the podcast, you can do it at the SClubBeat. If you want to follow Katey, you can do her at Katey_Carmen. And if you'd like to follow me, I am Dale at the World of S Club. Jess, it has been an absolute pleasure to go over these past 2 seasons with you. We love you so much. We
will have you back.
And next time I see one of these up on Google or eBay, I will go ahead and buy it, and then I'll take pictures of both of them for you.
I was going to go a nicer way, like you're going to buy it and then gift it to one of us. But
Now just taking pictures of both of them. Love y'all so much.
yeah, but
Bye, y'all.
bye.
You're listening to the S Club Beat with Dale and Katey.